The air was heavy that evening, not with heat or storm, but with something I couldn't name at the time. Tension, maybe, a pulse under my skin that told me to pay attention. I remember the way the driveway lights flickered as I pulled in, like the house itself was trying to warn me. I had spent the whole day driving back from a client site, stuck in traffic for hours with nothing but podcasts and stale coffee to keep me going. All I could think about was how quiet things had gotten lately, the texts that took longer to come, the way she'd paused just a moment before answering where she'd been, the smell of cologne in the laundry that didn't belong to me. I told myself I was being paranoid. I was wrong. The garage was empty when I pulled in. Her car gone. Not unusual. She had a girls' night planned, or at least that's what she'd said. But there was a note on the kitchen counter, written in her perfect cursive. Went out with Amanda and Michelle. Don't wait up. Smiley face. That smiley face. I stood there staring at it for a full minute. There was no lipstick on the edge of the mug she usually used, no heels by the door, no faint perfume lingering in the hallway like there used to be. Just silence. She'd already been gone a while. I didn't even take my bag upstairs. Just walked into the living room, sat down, and stared at the blank TV. My phone buzzed once. My buddy Dave asking if I got back safe, and then nothing. Not a single message from her all night. And that was when the ache started again, not in my chest, but behind my eyes. That place where disbelief starts to curdle into realization. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the way the air felt, or the memory of that voicemail she didn't know I overheard last week. Some man's voice laughing too close, too familiar. Or maybe it was the way she'd touched my arm the night before like it was a duty, not a desire. I opened her laptop. I had never done that before. Password was still the same. Our anniversary. Part of me winced at that. She hadn't cleared her browser history. That surprised me. I didn't find much at first. Pinterest, workout videos, a few random emails. But then I opened her messages. She hadn't logged out of iCloud. That's when I saw it. The name said Tyler, but the tone said something else. I started from the top, scrolling fast at first, then slower as the words sank in. I can't stop thinking about last night. You ruined me in the best way. He's clueless. It's honestly kind of exciting. If he finds out, I'll just lie like always. He buys everything. There were dozens. Pictures. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Plans. Memories that didn't belong to me. I read until I felt sick. Until my hands shook so badly I almost dropped the laptop. She had been meeting him for weeks, hotels, his apartment, even our house once, the week I was in Chicago. I sat there in that cold room and felt something in me break. Not shatter. Just give out. Like a foundation cracking beneath a house. Quiet, but irreversible. I didn't cry. Not then. There was too much adrenaline, too much disbelief, too many things clicking into place all at once. Her sudden new interest in working late. The girls' trips that always seemed to involve the same cities he had tagged on Instagram. The little lies that had started stacking up so neatly, like bricks around a truth she didn't want me to see. And still, part of me hoped it was just talking, hoped I'd misunderstood. I told myself I'd wait. I'd confront her calmly. I'd get the truth and then decide what to do. But the truth doesn't wait. It knocks. And when it does, it brings the whole house down with it. She came home at 2:14 a.m. I was still sitting in the same spot on the couch. Lights off. The house completely silent except for the low hum of the fridge. I had gone numb somewhere around midnight. No anger, no tears. Just stillness. Like I had turned into a piece of furniture. I knew I should have moved, should have gone to bed, should have done something. But I didn't. I just waited. The front door opened softly, carefully, as if she was trying not to wake a sleeping child. I heard her heels' first soft clicks against the hardwood. Then the shuffle as she kicked them off near the door, a habit she'd had since college. For a moment it felt normal, familiar, like nothing had changed. Then she turned the corner and saw me. She froze. "Oh," she said, startled. "You're awake." I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. Her makeup was smudged around the edges, the kind of worn look that doesn't come from dancing with girlfriends. Her hair was messy in the back. and there it was, his cologne. Not mine. Not hers. His. She noticed my silence and smiled, but it was stiff. Forced. Long night. Michelle got super drunk. I had to help her into an Uber. What are you doing up? Still, I said nothing. My hands were clasped together, pressed against my mouth. I didn't trust myself to speak. She walked to the kitchen, avoiding my eyes. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. That was when I finally stood. I didn't plan to, it just happened. My legs moved on their own. The weight of everything I had read, everything I had felt for weeks, was burning through me now like fire under my skin. Who's Tyler? I said it quiet, flat. She stopped mid-step, didn't turn around, didn't speak for at least 5 seconds. Then, too casually, Tyler who? That response told me everything I needed to know. No confusion, no surprise, just a delay while she calculated. The guy you've been texting, I said. The one who thinks you're his. The one you've been meeting in hotel rooms while I'm working 12-hour days trying to keep our house paid. She still didn't face me. I watched her back stiffen. Then she let out a laugh, low and hollow. Wow, so you've been snooping. No, I've been waking up. That hit her. She turned to face me then, arms crossed, chin raised. She looked at me like I had done something wrong. You went through my private messages? She said, indignant. That's what you're upset about right now? I said. That I found out? She rolled her eyes. You're unbelievable. And then, she walked past me like this whole thing was beneath her. Like I was some overdramatic husband who got his feelings hurt because his wife stayed out too late. I grabbed her wrist. Not hard, just enough to stop her. She yanked it back. Don't touch me, she snapped. I felt my heart sink, deeper than before. It was like watching the woman I married disappear behind her eyes, replaced by someone who didn't even flinch when she lied. Someone who looked at me with coldness, with contempt. I know everything, Ashley, I said. The messages, the pictures, the dates. You even brought him here. She hesitated, just for a split second, then shrugged. So what? She said. Those 2 words dropped into the room like a bomb. I couldn't speak. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. She stared at me. No remorse, no shame, and said, What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That I regret it? You've been boring for over a year. This house is boring. Our life is boring. Tyler makes me feel like I'm not dead inside. Can you say the same? It wasn't a confession. It was a declaration. Like she was proud of it. That's when I realized I wasn't looking at someone who had made a mistake. I was looking at someone who had chosen this, who had planned it, defended it, built a whole second life out of it. And she didn't care what it did to me. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't say another word. I walked upstairs, packed a bag, and left. But that was just the beginning. She wasn't going to let me go that easily. 3 days. That's how long I stayed in the hotel. A cheap extended stay place just off the highway, where the walls were thin and the water ran cold more often than hot. I didn't care. I couldn't go back home, not yet. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face the moment she said, So what? That smug tilt of her head, the way her lip curled like she was almost laughing at me. I replayed it over and over until my head ached, until I started to wonder if maybe I was the crazy one. But no, I had the proof. On the second day, I printed out the messages. All of them. Every word, every picture, every timestamp. I didn't even read them again. I couldn't. But I printed them anyway, like I needed to physically hold the truth so she couldn't twist it. So she couldn't call it paranoia or insecurity again. The first message I got from her came 12 hours after I left. A short one. You're being dramatic. Let's talk. I didn't respond. 6 hours later. If you want to ruin our marriage over a few texts, that's on you. No apology. No denial. Just gaslighting. By the end of the second day, her tone shifted. She realized silence meant I wasn't playing along. We should at least figure out how we're splitting things. There it was. The pivot. From pretend concern to calculated damage control. I didn't answer that one either. On the third day, around noon, my phone rang. It was her. I let it ring. She called again. Then again. Finally, I picked up. "Hello?" I said, voice flat. There was silence on the other end for a beat. Then a sigh. "So, this is how it's going to be?" she said. "You just run away and ignore me?" "I didn't run," I said. "I left. There's a difference." A pause. She laughed, low and bitter. "You're seriously going to throw away 7 years over this? Over one mistake? That's not what it was, and you know it. I was lonely, okay? You've been distant for months. All you ever do is work, you barely even touch me anymore. I tried talking to you, but you never listened. Tyler listened though, right?" She went quiet. For a long time. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You're not perfect either." I almost laughed. It was so transparent it didn't even sting. "You cheated, Ashley. You lied for months. You brought him into our bed. Don't talk to me about perfect." She snapped then, her voice sharp, loud. "Don't act like you've been some amazing husband. You think just because you pay bills and come home every night that makes you a saint? You're predictable. Safe. I needed more than that." I let the silence speak for me. She kept going. "You never even noticed how miserable I was. Tyler made me feel seen. Like I mattered. Like I was still wanted." "You were wanted," I said quietly. "Just not by someone who treated you like a disposable toy." That's when she lost it. "Don't you dare judge me. You think you're so righteous? You're weak. You'd rather walk away than fight for me." I almost said something then, almost told her that fighting for someone who spits in your face isn't strength, it's stupidity. But I held it in. "I'll send a list of the things I'll be picking up from the house," I said instead. "You can leave them in the garage." "You're seriously not even going to talk to me in person? What's left to talk about?" Then I hung up. And just like that, something shifted inside me. Not all at once, but like the first crack in a frozen lake. I realized something she hadn't. The more she tried to hurt me, the more obvious it became that she never expected consequences. She thought I'd stay. She thought I'd beg. She thought wrong. But she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And I wasn't ready for what she did next. The first thing she did was change the locks. I found out when I came back 4 days later, late in the evening, after texting her that I was swinging by to grab some of my clothes and a few documents I needed for work. We had agreed, well, I had told her that she could leave the stuff in the garage. She didn't answer the text, but I wasn't expecting a reply. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked calm. Too calm. Lights off, curtains drawn. Like a shell, hollowed out and waiting. I walked up with my key and stuck it in the door like I'd done 1,000 times before. It didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. At first, I thought maybe I had the wrong key. Then I saw the new silver around the lock, just slightly different from the old one. She'd done it, swapped them out without telling me. No warning. No heads up. No, hey, just so you know. Just locked me out of my own home. I stood there, stunned. Not because of the inconvenience, but because of the message. That was intentional. Power move. Her way of saying, "This is mine now." I rang the doorbell. Nothing. I knocked once, then twice. A light flicked on upstairs. Then off again. I waited. No answer. So I left. I drove to Dave's place, my best friend since high school, and stayed on his couch that night. I hadn't told anyone yet, not really. I didn't want the pity, didn't want the "I told you so" looks. But when I walked in with just a backpack and a blank stare, Dave didn't ask. He just opened the fridge and handed me a beer. That silence said more than any words. The next morning, I called my lawyer. That wasn't an easy decision. But I knew now this wasn't going to be a clean split. This wasn't a sad story of two people drifting apart. This was war, and she had just fired the first shot. The lawyer, a calm older guy named Marcus, was all business. I gave him the short version. Infidelity, lies, emotional manipulation. He nodded like he'd heard it all before. Maybe he had. "She's already making moves," I told him. "Changing locks. Trying to shut me out." "That's good," he said. "Let her make the first mistake. The more control she tries to take, the better it plays in court." Court. The word felt dirty in my mouth, but necessary. I spent the next 2 days sorting out bank accounts, freezing credit cards we shared, gathering documents, calling our accountant. Every step was exhausting, like I was untangling a net wrapped around my throat. And then she struck again. I got served. At work. Middle of the afternoon, I was in a conference room reviewing a contract when the receptionist walked in with a confused look and a manila envelope in her hand. "Are you Mr. Carter?" I already knew. Inside, divorce papers, filed by her, alleging emotional abandonment and controlling behavior. She wanted the house, half my assets, spousal support. Not a word about her affair. The nerve, the audacity. She was trying to rewrite the narrative to play the victim. And the worst part? She was good at it. I could already see how she'd spin it to friends, to family. He was cold. He left me. I didn't feel loved. All while conveniently erasing Tyler and the trail of lies she'd left behind. I called her that night. Not because I expected reason, but because I wanted to hear how far she was willing to go. She picked up on the third ring. "You got them, I assume?" she said. No emotion. "You really filed first? You left. What did you expect?" "I expected honesty." "You expect too much," she snapped. "You always have." I could feel my heartbeat in my teeth. "You lied to me," I said. "You cheated. And now you're playing the victim." "Oh, please," she said, her voice venom slick. "Grow up. You think this is about Tyler? That was a symptom, not the disease. You treated me like a roommate with a joint checking account. You stopped seeing me. And you solved that by climbing into bed with someone else? At least he looked at me like I mattered." Silence. I didn't have a response for that. Not because she was right, but because I realized she genuinely believed it. She'd built her version of events and was living in it like it was truth. "Keep the house," I said finally. "It's not home anymore." She laughed, light and cruel. "Oh, don't worry. I will." And then she hung up. But what she didn't know, what she never considered, was that I wasn't done either. She wanted a fight. She was going to get one. The first domino fell 2 weeks later. It started when I sent the evidence to Marcus. Every screenshot, every photo, every damning timestamp. He read through them with the efficiency of someone who'd handled 100 cases like mine, but still paused when he got to the ones where she mocked me by name. He still thinks I'm at yoga. I told him I was finding my center. LOL. He wouldn't notice if I brought Tyler into our kitchen in broad daylight. He's so predictable. He just wants to be the good guy. Poor idiot. Marcus looked up from the papers and said, "This changes everything." Her mistake wasn't cheating. It was documenting it. The next morning, we filed a response. Not just a denial of her claims, but a full countersuit. Grounds: adultery, emotional abuse, and malicious abandonment. The list was long, and I had receipts. By the end of the week, I had a formal request filed for a forensic examination of our shared devices. She hadn't wiped everything clean like she thought. Every location ping, every deleted message on the cloud, recoverable. While all this was happening behind the scenes, Ashley was playing queen in her little castle, completely unaware that her empire had a foundation of sand. She posted smiling selfies on Instagram, quoting song lyrics about freedom and self-love. One of her captions read, "Sometimes letting go is the strongest thing you can do." Funny, she hadn't let go of the house, or my car, or the dog, which she hated until she realized I might want to keep him. Suddenly she was buying organic treats and taking him on walks for social media. Then came the mutual friends. That was the hardest part. They started reaching out. Quietly, cautiously. One of them, Jenna, messaged me late one night. She'd always been close with Ashley, but she'd also been at our wedding. I could tell it pained her to type what she did. "I didn't know how bad it was. I'm sorry. She told us you were neglectful, cold, that you never touched her anymore. But she also said she never meant for it to happen with Tyler. That it just did." I didn't even reply. Another friend, Carl, called and told me something I hadn't known. Ashley had been seeing Tyler before she even met him through work. He wasn't a colleague. He was an old flame she had reconnected with behind my back months before I ever saw his name in her texts. So that was the next lie to fall apart. And that's when I realized this wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated. Every fake girl's night, every staged excuse, every carefully timed business trip, planned. This wasn't a lost spark or a desperate cry for attention. This was strategy. And yet, even with all this ammunition, I was still unraveling inside. Because it wasn't just the betrayal. It was the performance. The sheer audacity of her standing in court papers claiming she was the one who needed protection, who deserved compensation, who had been abandoned. She even tried calling my mom. Said she was concerned for me, that I was acting unstable. Mom didn't buy it. God bless her. She never liked Ashley's new tone these last couple years. She told her, calmly and clearly, that if she really cared, she'd stop trying to spin a story and start taking accountability. Ashley hung up mid-sentence. Then came the message from Tyler. That's right. He messaged me. It was short. I didn't know everything. I didn't mean to cause a mess. I'm out. Good luck, man. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't know everything. That meant she had lied to him too. She had built this illusion for him just like she had for me. Probably said I was abusive or cold or violent. Something to make herself look trapped. I almost felt bad for the guy. Almost. But mostly I felt nothing. And that scared me. Because even in all the anger, all the frustration, all the loss, I hadn't expected to reach a point where she felt like a stranger. Not someone I loved. Not someone I hated. Just a character in a play I'd walked out of. But I wasn't done. Not until the truth came out. Not until the last mask came off. The hearing was set for Friday morning. Neutral courthouse. Cold rooms. Air that smelled like old paper and impatience. I wore a navy suit I hadn't touched since my cousin's wedding and sat across from her in a room where even the furniture seemed tired. Ashley walked in late. Deliberately. Hair perfect. Designer heels clicking with that performative grace that said, "Look at me. I'm thriving." She didn't even glance in my direction. She walked past like I was a stranger. Not the man who held her hand through her father's funeral. Not the man who once drove 2 hours in the rain because she called crying and just said, "I don't want to be alone tonight." She sat next to her lawyer, a woman who looked about as thrilled to be there as I was. Mine, Marcus, leaned over and whispered, "She's posturing. She wants you to react." "Don't." I didn't. The judge came in. We stood. The formalities were mechanical, lifeless. Then the opening began. Her side spoke first. And it was worse than I expected. They painted me as emotionally distant, controlling, claimed I isolated her from her friends, that I used finances to create dependency, and that I had grown increasingly unstable and paranoid toward the end of the marriage. Ashley nodded quietly, hands folded, eyes blinking just enough to seem human. They even mentioned an incident where she felt unsafe. Never specified, just implied. My chest burned. I wanted to speak. I wanted to yell that it was a lie. But I didn't. Marcus stood when it was our turn. Calm. Precise. He said only what needed to be said, and when he began referencing the documents we submitted, screenshots, timestamps, receipts, the mood shifted. Suddenly the courtroom wasn't a stage for Ashley's monologue anymore. It was a microscope and she was underneath it. He read one message aloud. "He thinks I'm meditating. I'm actually in Tyler's bed. LOL." The judge's expression didn't change, but her lawyer's did. More messages followed. Precise. Damning. Every one of them cutting through her narrative like a blade through fabric. When Marcus finished, the room was silent. Ashley didn't look smug anymore. Her lawyer asked for a recess. It was granted. We stepped into the hallway. She followed just a few minutes later, and for the first time in weeks, she looked nervous. I stood at the window, staring at the concrete parking lot, when she approached. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't move. "We're already talking. In there." "I didn't know you'd go this far," she said quietly. "This far? You mean the truth?" She folded her arms. "You're trying to destroy me." "No. I'm trying to stop you from rewriting reality." She shifted, eyes scanning the floor. "You never fought for us," she said suddenly. "You just gave up." I turned to face her then, slowly, calmly. "No, Ashley. I fought for us every time I forgave a half-lie. Every time I chose to believe you instead of my gut. Every time I stayed when I should have walked. That was the fight. You just weren't worth the war." That hit her. I saw it. But not enough to change anything. Because she didn't cry, didn't apologize. She just said, "You're colder than I thought." I almost laughed. And then I walked away, back into that courtroom, back into the silence that follows truth. Because this wasn't about winning anymore. It was about ending it. Clean, complete, and with nothing left for her to twist. A week passed after the hearing, and I didn't hear from her. No emails, no calls, no more smug messages pretending she had the upper hand. It was like the mask finally cracked, and the person underneath, whatever was left of her, had gone quiet. The silence didn't feel peaceful, though. It felt like the kind you get before a storm. I had just started packing up the last of my things from Dave's guest room when Marcus called. "She's trying to settle," he said flatly. "Her lawyer reached out this morning." I leaned against the wall, suitcase halfway zipped. "What's she asking for now?" "She wants the house, the car, and half your savings. But she's dropped the claim for spousal support." I laughed once, short, humorless. "She's still pretending she's the victim, even after everything. She's protecting what she thinks she can still control," Marcus said. "But the evidence flipped this. The judge isn't blind. And neither is her lawyer anymore." I told him to move forward. No support, no split of the car. I'd walk away from the house. Too many memories soaked into those walls like poison. But I wouldn't let her drain me dry while pretending I was the one who broke us. Later that evening, I drove back to the house. Not to see her. I knew she was gone for the weekend, probably staying with a friend, or with Tyler if he was still around, though all signs pointed to that mess unraveling too. I went because there was one last thing I needed to take care of. One thing I hadn't been able to touch until now. My study. It was the one space she never liked. Too dark, too quiet, too full of boring things like books and papers and tools I used to tinker with on weekends. But to me, it was mine. The last place in the house that still felt untouched. I stepped inside and immediately felt the weight of it all. The photos, the smell, the stillness. I walked over to the desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside were two things. A photo of us from the first year of marriage, back when her smile reached her eyes, and a folded piece of paper I had scribbled on last winter. Notes for a letter I never sent. Apologies I had drafted when I thought maybe I was the problem. I looked at the words, and for the first time I saw them clearly. "I know I've been distant. I'm trying. I want to fix this. I love you." I folded it slowly, then tore it in half, then in quarters, then into pieces too small to hold anymore. That wasn't weakness. That was release. As I turned off the lights and walked back to the door, I noticed something tucked under the window. A shoebox. Out of place. Hidden. I opened it. Inside were receipts, hotel keys, an old phone I hadn't seen in years. I turned it on. It still worked. And that's when I saw it. Messages. Not just from Tyler. From two other names I didn't recognize. Conversations from over a year ago. Photos. Flirting. Plans. And suddenly it hit me, Tyler wasn't the beginning. He was the last in a line. All that time I was fighting for her. Trying to reconnect. Blaming myself. She had already left me in every way that mattered. She had just waited until someone made her feel bold enough to make it physical. I sat down on the floor. Not from shock. Not even from heartbreak. But from the finality of it. Everything I thought was broken had been gone long before I even noticed the cracks. And now I knew. There was nothing left to fix. I didn't tell anyone about the second phone. Not yet. I sat on the edge of that study floor with it in my hands, scrolling through the digital trail of a woman I once believed I knew. It wasn't rage that filled me anymore. It was clarity. Cold and clean like glass, but sharp at the edges. I had spent months torturing myself with questions. What did I do wrong? When did I lose her? Could I have saved it? Now I realized I'd been asking the wrong questions entirely. She had been gone for a long time. The Ashley I married had slowly evaporated, and what was left was this. Someone who wore a mask, played house, and lied with the ease of someone who knew they'd never be challenged. Until now. The next morning, I dropped the box off with Marcus. I didn't even need to explain. He opened the lid, saw the contents, and nodded once like a soldier given a new weapon. Her credibility is gone, he said. This makes her case dead on arrival. I asked if it would change anything financially. It might, he said. But that's not what this is about now, is it? It wasn't. This was about truth. This was about dragging every lie into the sunlight where it belonged. Could have burned it all. Could have walked away, cut the cords, and started over. But I wasn't just cleaning up a marriage. I was closing a chapter of my life written in someone else's handwriting. I wanted the final period to be mine. 2 days later, she called me. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her tone had shifted again. No more arrogance, no more venom. Now she was tired, tentative. Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I've been thinking about us, about everything. Can we talk? Please. No apology. Just please. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a simple message to her lawyer. All further communication will go through legal channels. Do not contact me personally again. It was clean. It was final. And that's when the real unraveling began. Within 48 hours, mutual friends began to text. Hey, I don't want to get involved, but Ashley's been saying some weird stuff. Did you really threaten her? She's telling people you've been unstable and that you're dragging this out to hurt her. She posted this cryptic story about being stalked and tagged a quote about narcissists. That last one made me pause, because I knew her tactics now. If she couldn't control the narrative legally, she'd do it socially. She was already laying the groundwork to make me the villain, the dangerous one, the one who drove her to cheat. I responded to none of it. Marcus, however, was ready. He drafted a formal statement, attached our evidence, sent it to her lawyer with one line. If public defamation continues, we'll seek damages. The stories stopped after that. But then came the message that told me everything I needed to know. From Tyler. Again. Just wanted to say, I didn't know she was still seeing someone else while she was with me. You weren't the only one being lied to. She told me you hit her. She said you were controlling. Said she couldn't leave because you threatened her. She showed me pictures of bruises once. I believed her. My stomach turned. I'd never laid a hand on her. Ever. But I knew what those pictures were. Years ago, she fell on the icy porch steps in December. Bruised her thigh and her ribs. I helped her inside, wrapped her in blankets, brought her tea. And she had used that to build a story. She was preparing for this even back then. Even Tyler, spineless as he was, had finally caught on. I don't know who she really is, his last message read. But I'm sorry, man. You didn't deserve this. He was right about one thing. I didn't. And for the first time since the night I found those messages, I felt free. Not healed. Not whole. But free. The final mediation was scheduled for a Thursday morning in mid-July. It was supposed to be the last step, just paperwork, signatures, terms agreed upon in cold legal language. But I knew Ashley. She wasn't going to let it end quietly. I walked into that sterile gray conference room expecting resistance. What I didn't expect was theater. She came in wearing white. A white blouse, flowing sleeves, soft beige heels. Subtle makeup. No jewelry. She looked like she was trying to give pure and graceful without overplaying it. Like a politician making an apology that wasn't quite an apology. She even smiled when she saw me. I didn't smile back. Marcus gave me a glance, quiet warning. Stay calm. Let her hang herself. Her lawyer looked 10 years older than he did at the last hearing. We sat down. The mediator, a soft-voiced woman with weary eyes, opened with pleasantries and a reminder that this wasn't about blame, just resolution. Ashley nodded politely, and then she spoke. I've done a lot of reflection, she began, voice trembling just enough. I never wanted things to end like this. I loved you once, deeply, and I lost myself. I stared at her, waiting. She looked down. Big breath. There were things I should have said earlier. Things I hid, not to hurt you, but because I didn't know how to face them. I take responsibility for my part in that. I know I made mistakes. It was rehearsed, flawless, the performance of a lifetime. I just hope you find peace, she added softly, voice cracking just slightly. And I hope you remember the good parts. Marcus leaned in toward the mediator. Are we here for a settlement or a monologue? The mediator smiled tightly. Let's proceed. Ashley's lawyer went over the final proposal. She wanted to keep the house. The car would be sold and split. No spousal support. No further claims. I had already agreed. I signed. So did she. The mediator thanked us both and stood. Everyone began to gather their papers. It was over. Finally, after months of unraveling, gaslighting, lies, and mind games. It was done, or so I thought. As I turned to leave, Ashley stood beside me. Her voice low so only I could hear. You didn't win, you know, she said, calm. Ice under the silk. I looked at her. I didn't have to, I said. I just had to walk away. She blinked, just once. The smallest crack in her mask. I didn't wait for more. I walked out, stepped into the sunlight, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. But I wasn't done. Not quite yet. Because later that evening I got a call. From a number I didn't recognize. It was Michelle, one of the friends she had always claimed to go out with. The same girls' night alibi I'd heard 100 times. I thought you should know, she said quietly. Ashley's been talking. About spinning the story even now. She's planning to post something big. About abuse. She's trying to control the narrative again. I felt my stomach drop. But, Michelle added, I'm done playing along. I believed her for too long. But after everything you showed in court, I know now. She's been lying to all of us. I thanked her, hung up, sat in silence. She still couldn't let go. Even now, legally severed, she was trying to shape the ashes into some version that made her look like the one crawling from wreckage instead of the one who lit the fire. I didn't panic. I called Marcus. We filed a preemptive cease and desist. We contacted social media platforms. We documented everything. I wouldn't let her do it again. She wanted to play martyr? Let her do it somewhere else. Far from me. Because I was finally, at the edge of the last page. And what came next would have nothing to do with her. It ended not with a bang, but with a breath. 2 weeks after the mediation, I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms, clean lines, and a balcony that overlooked the kind of quiet street where nothing ever really happens. But it was mine. No ghosts in the walls. No lies hiding in drawers. Just silence and peace. I unpacked slowly, box by box, not rushing anything. For the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't scrambling to fix something that was never mine to fix. I wasn't watching my back. I wasn't checking her phone for truths I didn't want to know. I was still. I found an old photo of us in one of the boxes. A Polaroid from a trip to Colorado, back when we used to hike and laugh and talk for hours in the car. I looked at it for a long time. We looked happy. But now I know pictures lie. People lie. And sometimes the version of someone you carry in your heart never existed at all. I didn't throw it out. I didn't burn it. I just slid it into a drawer I don't plan on opening again. Closure isn't an explosion. It's not a final scream or a dramatic goodbye. It's 1,000 small steps away from the fire. It's sleeping through the night without wondering where she is. It's pouring a cup of coffee without a pit forming in your stomach. She tried once more, by the way. One last text. I miss you sometimes. Don't you miss me? I stared at the screen for a moment. Thought about everything. The lies, the manipulation, the cruelty, the sheer calculation of it all. And I typed, no. Then I blocked her. That was the final cut. No more contact. No more unfinished conversations. No more doors left open. I see now that she was never confused. Never broken. She knew exactly what she was doing. Every step was deliberate, and every excuse was weaponized. She didn't just cheat. She chose to become someone who could, someone who would, and someone who wouldn't blink while watching the fallout. I survived her. That's what this is. Not a heartbreak story, a survival one. If you're reading this because you're where I was, here's my advice. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If the person next to you starts to feel like a stranger, don't wait for them to become one. If you feel yourself fading in your own life, wake up. Don't chase closure from someone who thrives on chaos. Don't waste another ounce of dignity trying to get honesty from someone who sees lies as power. Walk, even if it hurts, even if it shatters you, because on the other side, there's light and breath, and you, whole, stronger, wiser, free. That's where I am now, and I'm not looking back.